of a certain age, or if you've recently been to a 50s party, then you're probably familiar with doing the twist. Well, I am going to show you how you can use your SuperMax sander to undo the twist. Now, the twist that I'm talking about is obviously not the peppermint twist, but it's the kind of twist that you find when you reach for a piece of wood to make your new project, and something has happened to it since the last time you looked at it. Or maybe you're dealing with the twist's partner in crime, the cup. Which is not quite as ugly, but still renders this piece of wood unusable. And unless the wood is very cooperative or thin, you may not be able to correct it by simply moistening the concave side and putting it under pressure till it dries. Sometimes that works, but if the wood is needed for something freestanding, like a slab lid, with nothing to control it, you want to make sure that the wood is as stable as it can be. Now, the gold standard for stability is something like this lovely piece of ebony that I may actually one day bring myself to use. If you try rocking it, tapping it on a flat surface, you hear nothing. Most pieces of wood, even those we consider flat, and even though those that are flat enough to be usable, will still give you a little bit of bounce, but not a lot. You don't want a clatter. And that's the way I test for flatness, particularly when it's critical, as when I'm doing my stacked ring bowls and I want the rings to be absolutely flat. I put them down and bounce them. Okay, I take good care of this. Now, we're going to start out with the easier of the two conditions to correct. The basic principle is that you need a stable surface to put against the conveyor so that as you pass it through, you can gradually remove the uneven parts. So that in this case, what I would do is notice it's quite stable. Ugly, but stable. I'll put it through this way. It'll pass through. I'll set it so that it just kisses the top. And if I think I may have trouble seeing what's going on, I may put a pencil line or a chalk line across the top so that I can see exactly what's going to happen. And little by little, as I pass it through, it will flatten out. At some point, this will all be in the same plane. Now, of course, I will lose wood, but any way that you try to correct this, including hand planing, means the loss of wood. Once this side is flat, I then flip it over, put it through, and that will take down the sides. I can do the same thing, putting a line across. It's interesting to see what happens as you gradually put it through, and eventually you will end up with a flat piece of wood. Thinner, but thinner is better than no wood at all. Now, the twist had me stymied because there is no stable piece or stable side to use. They are both unstable. One may be more unstable than the other, but it's not usable because if it moves as it goes through, you'll end up with a nicely sanded, twisted piece, and this is not what you want. So I tried to figure how I could stabilize it. And it seemed that since it's stable invariably in one of the dimensions and unstable in the other, I needed to stabilize this. And I noticed if I held it down, it was essentially stable. So I needed to put something under here that would allow me to pass this through without falling out at the other end and without sticking to anything I didn't want it to stick to. And I decided on, this is the disadvantage of a compact shop. You use whatever surfaces are available. I decided on double-sided tape, which has thickness. which regular tape does not. So I started out by putting a piece on the underside. Checked it, no, that's not enough. Then I tried another piece. It was very exciting going through this process because I'd never seen a discussion of how to correct this kind of problem. I felt like I was pioneering something new in woodworking. You'll notice it already is sounding less bouncy. And let's see, about one more. The nice part about using the tape this way is you don't have to take it off on the other side. You want one side to not be sticky. Right, now notice it's quite stable. At this point, I can pass it through the sander using the standard techniques. And since this is so rough, it was not surfaced at all, it'll be easy to see what's going on. And once this side is smooth, flip it over, remove the tape, of course, and pass it through. And at that point, I should have a usable piece of wood. It's thick enough. You know, this is a true one-by, it hasn't been planed at all, so I have plenty of wood to work with. Rather than have you watch me feed it through, which is about as interesting as watching somebody getting a haircut, and listening to the mellifluous tones of my dust collection as well as the sander, I'm going to do what I described, and when it's completed, I'll show you what the results were. Here's what the cupped piece looks like as it comes through the sander. Notice that the convex side is up and barely touches the drum. To see how my sanding is progressing, I've made a pencil mark across the board, which will gradually disappear. I've sanded both pieces the way I said I would. And as you can see, this piece is a lot thinner than it was when we started out, but on the other hand, in terms of bounce, it is now very usable. And as for undoing the twist on this formerly ugly piece of sapele, you can see that it is absolutely flat and very salvageable. The only caution is that you can't do this with very long pieces of wood because it depends on keeping a stable surface as it passes through. On the other hand, if you have your in and out feed tables, you have a good long run and should be able to take care of most pieces of wood within reason and add on to your collection of usable wood. It may not turn out to be exactly the thickness that you intended, but on the other hand, I'm sure you'll find something that you can do with it. So you now know how to undo the twist using your SuperMax drum sander. Thank you for watching.